Midnight at Ouagadougou Airport. A French diplomatic plane waits on the runway, its engines rumbling, its lights piercing the African night. Clearance? It's not coming. Not tonight. Not ever. Inside the VIP lounge, ice-cold air, suffocating silence. Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré, stands tall. Eyes sharp. Jaw set in front of him, 17 black suitcases, sealed. Heavy. Dangerous, each one a coffin of secrets. Across the table, the French ambassador. Drenched in sweat, his hands tremble. His face pale. And Traoré? Calm. Focused. Unyielding. 17 suitcases. 17 million. 17 names. His voice slices through the room like a blade. This isn't about smuggling gold, this is a betrayal so deep, so calculated, it threatens the soul of a nation. Inside those suitcases, stolen gold, spy gear, blackmail files, forged contracts, fake identities, weapons, poisons, Burkina Faso's state secrets, sold for a price. This isn't just France's betrayal. It's betrayal from inside the government, ministers, generals, even friends. And as Traoré whispers the words that will define the night, open them. The world outside sleeps, unaware. But what happens next will shatter the illusion of diplomacy. Will expose the dark game of global powers. Will show the world what real leadership looks like. Collision. Like if you stand with Africa's fight for freedom. Speech balloon comment. What would you do in Traoré's place? Bell subscribe, because what happens next, you won't believe. This isn't just a story. It's a reckoning, and the storm, it starts now. The moment Ibrahim Traoré gave the order, open them, the room shifted. It was as if the air itself froze. Every breath was held. Every pair of eyes locked on the first suitcase. A soldier stepped forward, hands steady, but his eyes betrayed him, nervous, almost scared. The lock clicked. The latches popped open. And then, silence. A sharp gasp from Dio, the airport director, broke the tension. The lid swung back, and there they were. Gold bars. Dozens of them. Stacked in neat, precise rows. Each bar stamped with the unmistakable mark, Burkina Faso's national seal, the hammer and hoe, the pride of a nation. Traoré's jaw tightened. His gaze didn't waver. This wasn't a surprise to him. Not anymore. But for the others in the room? It hit like a gut punch. Kabor, the intelligence chief, leaned in, eyes wide. This is ours, he muttered, almost in disbelief. Traoré nodded slowly, his voice calm but sharp as a blade. Gold from our mines. Carved from our land. From the sweat of our people. A chill swept the room. The French ambassador, Dubois, shifted in his chair, his face pale. Sweat rolled down his temple, darkening the fabric of his collar. His lips parted, ready to speak, but no sound came. Traoré turned, his voice rising just enough to fill the room. This isn't aid. This isn't investment. He paused, letting the words settle. His eyes drilled into Dubois. This is theft. Disguised. Laundered. Wrapped in the lies of diplomacy. Another soldier lifted a bar of gold from the suitcase. The weight of it seemed to drag his arm down. The metal glinted under the harsh light. Kabor examined the stamp, fresh, untouched, pure. Then, another layer. Beneath the gold, hidden at the bottom of the suitcase, were bundles of euro banknotes. Each stack carefully banded, each seal marked, Banque de France. Kaboré's voice cracked. These are fresh prints. Direct from the French central bank. Traoré didn't blink. His voice dropped, low and lethal. This is how they've done it for decades. Quiet. Systematic. Taking our gold, our wealth, and paying us back in promises, in debts, in control. Du Bois finally found his voice, but it was weak, trembling. This must be a misunderstanding, diplomatic cargo. Traoré cut him off with a single look. Diplomatic cargo? His voice sharpened. You think a diplomatic seal makes this right? Makes it legal to loot a nation? The room grew colder. The soldiers at the door shifted their weight, hands tightening on their weapons. Traoré stepped closer to the table, eyes fixed on the gold, on the cash. On the betrayal laid bare. Let the world see, he said. Let them understand the price of our silence, and why it ends tonight. Outside, the engines of the French plane still hummed in the dark, waiting. But they would wait forever. Inside, the first suitcase had been opened, and the truth had begun to spill. And as the weight of the moment pressed down, Ibrahim Traoré knew, this was just the beginning. The storm had been unleashed. The world was about to learn what Burkina Faso's fight for sovereignty really meant. What happens next would change everything. The gold was shocking enough. But what came next chilled the room to the bone. As the first suitcase sat open, its truth undeniable, Traoré gave the signal. His voice steady, low. The second suitcase was heavier. A soldier hoisted it onto the table. The lock snapped open with a metallic click. Silence fell again. This time, it wasn't gold or cash. It was documents, files, photographs, folders. A mess of paper, but each sheet felt like a bullet. Cabor reached in, pulling out a manila folder. His hands shook. He opened it. The first page hit like a hammer. A photograph. Clear, high resolution. A Burkinabe minister, well-known, powerful, seated in a luxury Paris nightclub. Glass of champagne in hand. Laughter frozen in time. Next to him, a French arms dealer. The timestamp glared from the corner. The details too precise to ignore. Another folder. Another image. A different minister, in Geneva. A bank transfer receipt in one hand, an envelope in the other. The amount? €500,000. The signature? French mining executive. Cabor's voice was hoarse. This is blackmail. Traoré nodded slowly. They don't just steal our gold. They own our leaders. They control us, with fear. He gestured for more files. A soldier laid them out across the polished table. Each page told a story of betrayal. Photographs of Burkinabe families, wives, children, followed by travel itineraries, hotel bookings, surveillance logs. They knew where their kids went to school. They knew the hospitals their families used. They knew everything. And then, lists. Printed names, hundreds of them. Ministers. Journalists. Judges. Students. Teachers. Each name marked with a code. Cabor read out loud, his voice cracking. 47 names marked X. Traoré clenched his fists. His name was there too. At the very top. The ink on it dark and bold. Du Bois, across the table, was trembling. Sweat beaded on his forehead, dripping onto the documents. He opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Traoré's voice was low but lethal. Who built this list? Du Bois stammered. It's a precaution. For security. These are just scenarios. Traoré's hand slammed onto the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Everyone jumped. These are kill lists, Du Bois. His voice cut through the room. This isn't diplomacy. This is warfare by blackmail. He pointed at the photographs. You know what this is? It's not just a dossier. It's a system. A system of control through fear. Built in Paris. Carried out by Burkinabe traitors. Those who sold out their country for power, for money, for promises whispered in back rooms. The room fell into an eerie silence. Traoré's gaze swept the table, over the faces in the photos, the lists of names, the transactions. His eyes hardened, locked on Du Bois. 17 suitcases, Du Bois, he whispered. And this is just the second. The ambassador looked defeated. His breath shallow. His eyes darted to the door, but there was no escape. Outside, the engines of the French plane still hummed, still waiting. But inside the room, the storm was building. The world hadn't seen anything yet. Ibrahim Traoré's voice dropped to a near whisper. Bring the next suitcase. And so it continued. The unmasking of betrayal, layer by layer, suitcase by suitcase. What happens next will shatter everything you thought you knew. The blackmail files were devastating. But the storm wasn't over. Not even close. Traoré's eyes didn't leave Du Bois, but his voice rang out steady. Next suitcase. A soldier dragged it onto the table. The sound of metal scraping against wood sent a chill through the room. The lock snapped open. The lid lifted. The air shifted. This wasn't gold. Not cash. Not blackmail. This was something else. Kabor's face tensed as he reached in. His fingers brushed cold steel. He lifted a small device, barely the size of a coin. He turned it in his hand. His voice was a whisper. Surveillance bug. Top grade. Then another. A tiny camera, embedded in a button. Then another. A transmitter, marked with a logo everyone in the room recognized, NSA. Kabor's hands trembled. This is American. Traoré's voice was ice. And how did it get here, Colonel? Kabor's face darkened. He knew the answer. Everyone did. France. NATO. The same old network. The same dirty game. The next layer of the suitcase made the room colder. Vials. Bottles. Pills. Labels written in French and English. Kabor read them aloud, one by one. Simulates heart attack. Mimics stroke. Food poisoning with no trace. Poisons. Weapons of quiet death. A silence fell so heavy it felt like the air itself was suffocating. Traoré's voice cut through the dread. Who were these meant for, Du Bois? The ambassador shook his head. I don't. I'm just the messenger. Traoré leaned forward, his voice low, dangerous. A messenger, or an accomplice? Du Bois had no answer. Then came the final blow. Kabor lifted a thick black folder from the bottom of the suitcase. Heavy. Worn at the edges. A gold stamp on the cover, Operation Sankara. The room froze. Kabor's hands shook as he opened it. The first page. The date, October 15, 1987. Objective, elimination of Thomas Sankara. Method, Armed assault during palace meeting, result, operation successful. Photos followed. Black and white. Grainy. But clear enough. Sankara's body. Bullet holes. Blood pooling on the marble floor. Dio, the airport director, gasped. Aminata covered her mouth. Kabor's jaw clenched. But Traoré, he didn't flinch. His eyes locked on the file. Then he turned the page. Phase 2. Target, Ibrahim Traoré, date, 2023 to 2024. The room seemed to tilt. The betrayal wasn't new. It wasn't recent. It was generational. It was planned. And it was happening again. The file listed the methods. First, political pressure. Then economic sanctions. If that failed, physical elimination. Kabor's voice was hoarse. They were going to kill you, Mr. President. Traoré's voice was steady. They tried before. They'll try again. But not this time. He lifted the file, holding it for all to see. This is the truth they never wanted us to see. This is why they control our leaders. Why they kill those who resist. Why they steal our gold, our oil, our uranium. It's all here. Written. Planned. Signed. Du Bois couldn't speak. His face had drained of color. His hands shook uncontrollably. Traoré's eyes burned with fire. This is why we fight, he said. This is why we stand. And this is why they will fail. The room was silent. Traoré's voice dropped, a whisper now, but it carried like thunder. Bring the next suitcase. And so the storm rolled on. What happens next would expose everything. The files were damning. The betrayals deep. But Traoré knew, evidence hidden in a room meant nothing. The world needed to see. The people needed to hear. He didn't hesitate. Prepare the cameras, he said, voice firm, cutting through the tension like a blade. His team moved fast. Just hours later, national television cut to a special broadcast. The flag of Burkina Faso fluttered behind Traoré. His face was serious. His eyes, burning. Before him, the 17 suitcases. The world stopped. Phones rang. Radios crackled. Screens across Africa lit up. Traoré's voice echoed through living rooms, markets, and city squares. Dear citizens, tonight, we open the truth. He lifted the first suitcase, the gold. The camera zoomed in. The bars gleamed under the lights. This is your gold, Traoré said. His voice was steady, heavy with the weight of history. Taken. Stolen. Hidden in diplomatic seals. He opened the next suitcase, the blackmail files. Faces flashed across the screen, Burkinabe ministers in Paris nightclubs, bank slips, hidden deals. Look at them, he said. These are the men who sold you out. Then the third suitcase, the spy devices, the poisons, the Operation Sankara file. Gasps filled homes across the country. Mothers covered their mouths. Fathers clenched fists. Children stared wide-eyed. Traoré's voice rose. They killed Thomas Sankara. They plan to kill me. They plan to kill anyone who stands in their way. The room behind him was filled with tension. His ministers stood by, Aminata, Kabor, Dio, silent, watching, letting the truth sink in. Suitcase after suitcase, exposed. The cyber warfare plans, the oil and uranium contracts, the assassination lists, the forged signatures. Everything. Traoré didn't hold back. He let the cameras capture it all. Every paper. Every photograph. Every detail. The streets erupted. Flags waved high. Drums pounded, fast and fierce. Voices rose into the night, chanting, "Down with colonialism. Long live independence. The gold is ours." It was no longer just a broadcast. It was a revolution on air. The ripple effect hit fast. In Mali, the president called an emergency cabinet meeting. In Niger, thousands marched to the capital, demanding, "Where are our 17 suitcases?" In Guinea, the youth flooded the streets, their chants shaking the city, "We want our gold. We want our future." Traoré's broadcast had ignited something no one could control. Du Bois watched from a hotel room in Ouagadougou, pale as a ghost. In Paris, crisis meetings erupted at the Élysée Palace. Leaders scrambled. Whispers flew. The betrayal was exposed, and it was too big to contain. And in the homes of everyday Africans, a spark lit. A father looked at his son and whispered, "Traoré, he's fighting for us." A mother hugged her daughter, tears in her eyes. This is the day everything changes. And outside, under the night sky, Ibrahim Traoré stood tall. His voice echoed across the land, through radios, televisions, and hearts. "This is our moment," he declared. "The truth is ours. The future is ours. And we will never be slaves again." The broadcast ended. But the movement had just begun. The world was watching. Africa was awake. And the sound of freedom drums would not stop. The streets of Ouagadougou roared with chants and drums. The broadcast had torn through the night like a lightning strike. The people knew now. The world knew. There was no going back. But while the fires of resistance burned in Africa, a storm was brewing in Paris. Inside the Élysée Palace, the walls trembled, not from bombs or gunfire, but from panic. Diplomats scrambled down corridors. Phones rang non-stop. Whispered arguments spilled into rooms once reserved for quiet deals and polished smiles. The French president sat stiff in his chair, knuckles white against the polished table. "This is a disaster," he muttered. His voice was sharp, but there was fear beneath it. Across from him, the foreign minister wiped sweat from his brow. "Sir, the footage is everywhere. The files, the gold, the photographs, it's all over the news. We can't control the narrative." Screens in the room flickered with images of Traoré, standing tall behind the suitcases, his voice fierce, his words clear. One advisor whispered, "Maybe we can still say it's a misunderstanding, diplomatic cargo, a breakdown in communication." "Enough," snapped the president. His voice cracked like a whip. "The world has seen the truth. The 17 suitcases are real. The signatures, the contracts, real. The list of names, real." He leaned back, rubbing his temples. His voice softened, a whisper now. "Traoré has done what we feared most. He's exposed us. Not just here, but everywhere." A heavy silence settled. Then, a diplomat spoke quietly, almost too afraid to say it. "Sir. Africa is watching. Mali. Niger. Guinea. Even Senegal. They're asking questions. Demanding answers. They want their gold. Their uranium. Their sovereignty." The room held its breath. A general broke the silence, voice tense. We should consider a military response. Precision strikes. Pressure points. Show them we're still in control. The president shook his head. Slowly. No. We can't. His voice was low, tight. The cameras are on us now. The world is watching. We make a move, we look like colonial tyrants. We do nothing, we lose Africa. And for the first time in years, they understood, they were trapped. Traoré had flipped the board. While Paris drowned in whispers and panic, across Africa, a different energy surged. In Bamako, Mali's leader called an emergency assembly. No more French bases. No more stolen contracts. In Niamey, thousands of Nigerians filled the streets, chanting, "Where are our 17 suitcases?" In Conakry, Guinea's youth rallied, holding signs, "Sovereignty is not for sale." The message spread like wildfire. If Traoré could do it, so could they. And in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré stood at the palace window, looking out over the crowd. Drums pounded like thunder. Flags waved. Voices roared. He turned to Aminata, Kabor, and Dio. His voice was firm. This isn't just about us. It's about Africa. This time, we fight back. This time, we win. His words were simple. But they carried the weight of centuries. The world had played its game in the shadows, puppets and strings, deals made in the dark. But Traoré had shattered that illusion. The stage was no longer theirs. The light was on. And in the light, the truth was undeniable. Burkina Faso would not be a colony. Not now. Not ever again. The storm had broken. And across Africa, the people were ready. The drums wouldn't stop. The flags wouldn't lower. The voices wouldn't fade. Not this time. Not ever. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just expose a crime, he shattered a system. He took the stolen gold, the blackmail files, the spy devices, the poisons, and the plans for assassination, and he laid them bare for the world to see. The 17 suitcases weren't just evidence. They were proof. Proof that Burkina Faso had been robbed, that Africa had been treated as a colony long after the flags changed, that corruption ran deep, and that it would no longer be tolerated. That night, in the streets of Ouagadougou, the people didn't just chant. They roared. Flags waved high. Drums pounded like war cries. Children stood on their fathers' shoulders, shouting, "Freedom!" The air was electric, thick with something the world hadn't seen from Africa in a long time, hope. And across the continent, the ripple turned into a wave. In Mali, young leaders said, "We want our gold." In Niger, crowds marched, demanding, "Where are our 17 suitcases?" In Guinea, fists rose, voices thundered, "We are not for sale." Traoré stood as the symbol of that resistance. Not just a man, but a mirror. A flame. A fire lit in the hearts of millions. He was the leader who dared to say no. The president who held up the truth in front of the world, and in doing so, gave Africa a new language, one of defiance, one of dignity, one of sovereignty. He didn't just reclaim the gold. He reclaimed the